of council to take their seat. We'll start the meeting in 1 minute. On va commencer la réunion dans 1 minute. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Bon matin, mesdames et messieurs, et bienvenue au Conseil municipal de la Ville d'Ottawa pour le 27 septembre 2017. Welcome to Ottawa City Council meeting for the 27th of September 2017. For those who are able to, could you please rise for a moment of personal reflection and remain standing, and we'll ask Councillor McKenney to introduce our very special guests who are here to sing the national anthem. If you could remain standing, Councillor McKenney, you have some very talented and special guests here to perform the national anthem.
Yes, I sure do. I'm very pleased to introduce Orchestra, who are here with us today to perform the national anthem. They're based in the ward. I wanted to say that they come from across the city, although we did just learn that most come from downtown, so it's, I guess, the way I view the city. Across the city, but mostly downtown. But they are based at the Bronson Centre, and I was thrilled when they performed at my most recent Minto Park sale, to the delight of many residents. I also want to mention that they also performed on Canada Day on the main stage, although I promised them no lineups and no rain if they would agree to come here today. So Orchestra is a social development program for kids ages 5 to 18 who are living in underserved areas of the city, and their mission is to empower children and build community through the universal language of music. They carry out this mission by providing kids with free music lessons and the opportunity to learn important life skills with respect, compassion, teamwork, and responsibility through playing and singing together. Their vision is a future where all children and youth have the opportunity to find their voice and build their potential through music, and this is their 10th year. Now I'd like you to join me in welcoming Orchestra, who will play our national anthem.
Well, thank you very much to these great musicians from Orchestra. All of these musicians, I believe, except one, had the honor of playing at the Juno Awards this year with Juno Award-winning singer from Edmonton, Ruth B., and they did a remarkable job in front of, I think, 20,000 people. So thank you very, very much. Let's hear it for Orchestra. Congratulations. Merci beaucoup. Bravo. Thank you. At this time in our meeting, it's our opportunity to present the Mayor's City Builder Award, and I'd ask Rafaela Plastino to come forward at this time, along with Councillor Riley Brockington, who is Rafaela's City Councillor. Bonjour, buongiorno, welcome. And very pleased to see friends and neighbors of Rafaela's with us here today. And former Mayor Jackie Holtzman is with us. Thank you and welcome, Jackie, very much. This probably brings back memories of regional headquarters for you. Thank you. Alors, merci beaucoup, Rafaela.
Thank you very much, Rafaela, for being here with your family members and the past mayor of the city, Jacqueline Holtzman.
In Italian community, and has always been ready to lend her organizing skills and enthusiasm to many, many good causes. Her leadership and involvement in so many initiatives is greatly appreciated by friends and community members, not just in her neighborhood, but throughout the city of Ottawa. And it's my honor, along with Councillor Brockington, to recognize her many contributions with the City Builder Award. This award recognizes people who have demonstrated an extraordinary commitment to making our city a better place today and for the future through outstanding volunteerism or exemplary action. Rafaela has been involved with the formation and promotion of Italian Week, which started in 1974. She has worked for more than 3 decades in various capacities, having served as the president for 8 years and vice president for 12 years. Rafaela has taken the lead, along with other committee members, to elevate this festival from a local community celebration to a full-fledged popular extravaganza. The festival is a major event that is now advertised on tourist information sites throughout North America. And Rafaela has provided assistance and has been involved in fundraising initiatives, including building the long-term care center for seniors known as Villa Marconi. She is also recognized for having gone door-to-door in the community to raise funds to help people in the Friuli region of Italy devastated by strong earthquakes in 1976. Rafaela has never shied away from hard work and long hours because her dedication to the community has always come first. She became the go-to person for translation services, a driver for medical appointments, a referral for legal and medical services, and a source of support for people in dire straits. She's become well known for her willingness to help others, and her efforts have increased revenues for many businesses in Little Italy and throughout the city of Ottawa. Ultimately, she succeeded in bringing the entire community together to celebrate and savor Italian heritage. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank you, Rafaela, for your many contributions to the community and the entire city.
I would like to take this opportunity to thank Rafaela for her many contributions to the community and the entire city.
On behalf of all members of City Council, to present you with the Mayor's City Builder Award. Keep up the great work, and thank you very much for your dedication. Come on over here, we'll just get a picture.
Hello, everyone. I think Jim has said everything, and I don't know what to say anymore. I'd like to thank everyone at the City Hall to recognize me with this beautiful award. Whatever I did in the city, in my city, the beautiful city of Ottawa, I did with pleasure. The city of Ottawa is the best city in the world, and Canada is the best country in the world. Thank you. Merci e grazie.
And we've got Trina, of course, who represents the National Congress, and some flowers for Rafaela. And thank you to all the family and friends. And Jackie, thank you for being here, because I know how you've worked closely with Raffaella, and she really kept the Italian Week going and alive for many, many years, and it's now such a great, great success. So thank you all for being here and sharing in this special moment for a very special person. Today, I'm pleased to launch the City of Ottawa's 2017 United Way campaign, Centraide Ottawa Employee Campaign.
Today, I'm pleased to launch the City of Ottawa 2017 United Way Centraide Ottawa Employee Campaign.
Following people to come forward, Michael Allen, President and CEO of the United Way. Welcome, Michael. Dan Chenier, who once again, boy, you keep drawing the short straws, eh, Dan? This is his 50th year. Running the employee campaign. Thank you for being voluntold again. I like that. Councillor Michael Kakish, who was the council rep and honorary campaign chair. Rainer Boutet, City of Ottawa 2017 United Way employee campaign manager. And I know we have other people here from the community. Anyone else you think we should have here? This is sort of the core of the team. Anyone else?
Marc Belanger is with us.
Yes. Bonjour, Monsieur Belanger. Comment ça va?
Good day, Mr. Belanger. How are you?
The work accomplished every day by city employees and the achievements of the United Way Centraide really go hand in hand with one another. Since it was designated the corporate charity of choice for the City of Ottawa in 2001, city employees have raised more than $6 million for United Way Centraide. The incredible contributions of City of Ottawa employees have helped to change the lives of more than 5,000 people in the community in the last 5 years alone. During the 2016 campaign, city employees raised $328,705, changing the lives of 1,174 residents. This year, the city's employee campaign goal is to help 1,250 people by raising a total of $350,000. So it's a little bit more, which means we all have to dig a little deeper to help this important cause. Now, the connection between the City of Ottawa and United Way is well known.
The connection between the City of Ottawa and the community it serves is strong.
So some of the very same community and social service programs that are funded by the city to support our most vulnerable residents. Giving to the United Way is 100% local. All money raised stays right here in the community. Un don à Centraide est un don 100% local.
Giving to United Way is 100% local. All money raised stays right here in our community, the City of Ottawa.
Used to support more than 90 local programs, helping people with disabilities, at-risk youth, children, homeless youth, people facing mental health and addiction issues, and many others. A few examples include the Boys and Girls Club, World Skills Employment Centre, and the Distress Centre of Ottawa. The United Way continually fosters partnerships between business, government, and the community at large. Centraide continue de faire.
The United Way continually fosters partnership between business, government, and community at large.
In Ottawa, to have the United Way Centraide to help identify where support is needed. And I know Michael, in his capacity as council liaison for refugees, we work very closely. If it wasn't for the United Way and the Community Foundation, together raising close, I believe, to $1 million, Michael, to help the 2,200 Syrian refugees who arrived as new residents of our city. They really stepped in to run the website, collecting the funds. And it was not part of their goal or their objectives for that year. This was something that really came upon us relatively quickly. We had to move fast, and very proud of the way the United Way helped partner with the City of Ottawa to welcome those 2,200 men, women, and children. So on behalf of the City Council and the entire administration, we're going to do our very, very best to meet that goal and hopefully exceed that goal, because we know how important United Way is for so many agencies we deal with on a regular basis. And I'd ask Michael Allen, the CEO, to say a few words. Merci beaucoup. Michael.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Maire. Thank you, Jim, for all that the city does and all of the partnerships that are reflected in your comments. I also want to thank Councillor Kakish for stepping forward. As the Mayor spoke, it was a real privilege to work so closely with the city and many other partners that both the Mayor and Councillor Kakish led during that test for the city when we were called upon to welcome to a new home those affected by the Syrian crisis and those refugees. And so that work continues, and it continues to be a pleasure. Likewise, I want to thank Dan. I didn't know it was 50 years, Dan. Congratulations. We have a pin. We have a pin for you for that. And thank you as well to Rainer for your leadership. A few things I wanted to say. One is that we've really been well received this year in terms of some new innovations. So one of the things that that Rainer and our staff and Dan have led is we are now fully deploying electronic pledging at the City of Ottawa, and we had hoped that a few departments would lead the way in identifying those areas of our work, whether it be mental health issues or youth issues or what have you, that cast the range of activities that the United Way is responsible for, to sort of get behind those causes. And I think we're standing now at about a dozen departments, and so we really want to thank the city for that enthusiasm, that commitment. What will this enable us to do is provide your campaign leadership and the city with real-time reporting. So as soon as a donation is made, we will have that collected. And in fact, I think Rainer is going to have an opportunity for e-pledge to be set up outside. So Mr. Mayor, if you'd like to use that opportunity, we'd welcome you at that time. We also will have a better opportunity to use electronic communications to communicate more effectively, again in real time with donors, to thank them, to report on the stewardship of their gifts, and help us set priorities for the work that the city donors have identified. One thing that also is different this year is that the city is not having a large launch the way they used to do. And I think that's a good decision in the sense that it provides us an opportunity to take a traveling road show to each and every, we hope, department within the city. And I understand that we have booked 54 speaking opportunities for people who are affected, who are lives changed in our community, to tell the story of their impact. And so I think, Councillor, you sent out with Dan, or will be sending out with Dan, an email later this morning saying that the campaign is launched, and we'll look forward to that. The one other story I want to share with you speaks and illustrates the partnership that the United Way and the city has had. And that is in an area that I know is topical and has been topical for probably as long as I have been with United Way, and that is around addictions and drug issues in our city. And it was about 10 years ago that I sat around this table with city officials around the issue of safe injection sites. So many things change, many things stay the same. And at the time, we responded by segmenting the problem around young people and youth. And what could we do to try and work upstream to prevent young people from being exposed to or managing the temptations of drugs. And so a project was born called Project STEP. STEP stands for Support, Treatment, Education, and Prevention. And in the past 10 years, we have seen the construction and the opening and the servicing of 2 permanent youth addiction centers in the city, both in French and in English. We have seen the deployment of counseling services in all of Ottawa's high schools, and now in some junior high schools, and in non-traditional education settings, Operation Come Home, Maison Fraternité, and the Youville Centre. And last spring, those around this table will remember, of course, that the city had a big scare, an understandable scare, that parents reached out to city officials, to Ottawa Public Health, to organizations like United Way, when fentanyl, the crisis around fentanyl, hit the city. And so, like we did in the context of the Syrian refugee crisis, we began a fundraising campaign to provide services and support. But the great news was that, unlike almost any other city in North America, we had the 10-year partnership of Project STEP to fall back on. It included public health, it included all school boards, it included the city, it included the Ottawa Senators Foundation, and United Way. We raised, to date, almost $200,000, and we deployed with the advice around that table, including organizations like Ottawa Public Health, supports for what we feared was going to be a very, very high-risk time as schools were beginning to host their proms. And although early days in terms of the data assembling and the evidence of it, we heard last week that with the support of the SMART prom training that was done, that there was not a single reported overdose of a young person during the prom season or at a festival. So again, it's early days. It's early days to say that we have addressed this issue fully, but we've come through a period of time when the concerns were very heightened. And that speaks to the partnership of all of those organizations, including those that deliver the service, Rita Wood, Maison Fraternité, and the partnership that exists between us. So I want to thank you for that partnership. I look forward to supporting your team in this campaign and looking forward to the work that will continue. Merci beaucoup, tout le monde. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you again to our friends from United Way. Madam Deputy Clerk, roll call, please.
Conseiller Manette.
Présent.
Councillor Middick. Councillor Harder. Councillor Wilkinson.
Present.
Councillor El Shantiri.
Present.
Councillor Kadri.
Present.
Councillor Taylor.
Here.
Councillor Shirley.
Here.
Councillor Eglai.
Here.
Councillor Deans.
Here.
Councillor Tierney.
Présent.
Conseiller Fleury.
Ici.
Councillor Nussbaum.
Here.
Councillor McKenney.
Present.
Councillor Leeper.
Ici.
Councillor Brockington. Councillor Chernyshenko.
Présent.
Conseiller Cloutier.
Présent.
Conseiller Blais.
Présent.
Councillor DeRuse.
Here.
Councillor Moffat.
Here.
Councillor Kakish.
Present.
Councillor Hubley.
Here.
Mayor Watson.
Ici.
Le quorum est tient, Monsieur le Maire.
You have quorum.
Minutes, adoption de procès verbaux for the 13th of September 2017. Carried. Declaration of interest, including those arising from previous meetings, déclaration de conflit d'intérêt. Communications as presented. Regrets, Councillor Jody Minnick will be absent from the City Council meeting of September 27th, 2017. Motion to introduce reports, Councillor Kakish, seconded by Councillor Taylor, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That the report from City Clerk and Solicitor's Office entitled Status Update, Council Inquiries and Motions for the period ending September 22nd, 2017, Community and Protective Services Committee Report 26, Environment and Climate Protection Committee Report 15, Planning Committee Report 50A, and the report from the City Clerk and Solicitor's Office entitled Summary of Oral and Written Public Submissions for Items Subject to Bill 73 Explanation Requirements at City Council meeting of September 13, 27 be received and considered, and that the rules of procedure be suspended to receive and consider Planning Report 51 in order to meet the statutory 90-day timeline for consideration under the Ontario Heritage Act.
Okay, on the motion by Councillor Kakish, seconded by Councillor Taylor, carried. A report, City Clerk and Solicitor, Greffier Municipal et Avocat Général, Status Update, Council Inquiries and Motions for the period ending September 22nd. Rapport de situation, demande de renseignements et motions du Conseil pour la période terminée le 22 septembre 2017. Received. Community and Protective Services Committee Report number 26, numéro 26 de Communauté de Services Communautaires et de Protection. Item number 2, Ontario Early Years Child and Family Centers, Centre de l'Ontario pour la Petite Enfance et la Famille. Carried. Item number 3 is Security and Emergency Management Branch 2016 Annual Report. Received. Report annuel 2016 sur le service 911 Annual Report for 2016. Received. Sponsorship naming rights, Centrepoint Theatre's droit d'appellation lié au commandite Théâtre Centrepoint. Carried. Item number 6, long-range financial plan 5, water, wastewater, and stormwater supported programs. We have some motions on that, so we'll come back to that. Item number 7 deals with item number 6, and we have to have a motion for that. We'll come back to that. Item number 8, 2016 Drinking Water Quality Management System Annual Management Review Report, rapport de l'examen annuel 2016 de système de gestion de la qualité de l'eau potable. Received. And congratulations again to our staff. We have the best drinking water once again in all of Ontario. Planning Committee Report number 50A, rapport numéro 50A du Comité de l'Urbanisme. Item 9, Heritage Inventory Project, additions to Heritage Register, Old Ottawa East and Old Ottawa South. Carried. Dissent by Councillor Blais. Item number 10, Official Plan Amendment 4791 Bank Street, modification de plan officiel 4791 Rue Bank. Carried. Item number 11, we have a motion for that, so we'll come back to that one. Planning Committee Report number 51, rapport numéro 50 du Comité de l'Urbanisme, application pour nouvelle construction à 445 Avenue Green.
New construction at 445 Green Avenue.
Green, a property designated under Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act and located in the Rockcliffe Park Heritage Conservation District. Carried. The bulk consent agenda. Councillor Fleury wishes to remove item C. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Does anyone else wish to remove anything from the bulk consent agenda? On the bulk consent agenda as presented? Carried. Okay, so we'll go back to the first item. Councillor Chernyshenko will have to move a motion because this was not voted at in committee. So Councillor Chernyshenko, seconded by Councillor Kakish, I believe, has a motion.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I've got 2 referral motions. I'm not sure. We'll start with the Comprehensive Asset Management Program one. The other one, okay. Be it resolved that City Council receive and adopt the strategy described in this report as amended by Environment and Climate Protection Committee.
Okay, and now the second motion that you have, this was, maybe you can set the context, Councillor Chernyshenko, and as to what you're presenting here for the benefit of members of the public and council.
The context was we had a wide-ranging discussion about the long-range financial plan related to our water, sewer, and wastewater programs and funding, and it was agreed by members at committee to refer that item to full council for discussion and some additional information, and also some questions could be asked and were answered by staff in the meantime for a number of councillors with specific concerns. So procedurally, nothing was voted on at that committee. We are now bringing the report forward to full council, and any amendments would require that we actually have something on the table in front of us. So we are effectively saying, yes, thank you, we have that report in front of us, now we can debate it, now we can amend it, and ultimately choose how we wish to vote on it. So, whether I got them out of order or not, we did already move the recommendations related to the long-range financial plan, and then the other is, be it resolved that City Council, 1, receive the update on the city's comprehensive asset management program as it relates to programs funded by sewer and water revenues, and 2, approve the next steps for the comprehensive asset management program as identified in this report.
Okay, so just for clarification's sake, because Environment Committee did not deal with this, the entire matter is before us, and in the interim, the councillor, along with a number of other councillors and members of the rural caucus, all met, and we believe we've come up with a reasonable and respectful compromise that allows us to continue to do needed work on drains and culverts and ditches and stormwater projects by bringing the rate down to approximately, I believe, 5%, which is in line with the water rate. And in order to deal with this, we have to deal with the Chernyshenko-Moffat motion, which I believe was circulated to everyone. Then we'll deal with the full report as amended, and then we go on to item number 7. So we're dealing with both 6 and 7, and Councillor Harder has questions and comments.
One question, Mr. Mayor, and you kind of led us to it, but when we dealt with the rate budget, we approved, wasn't it 5%? And we did that earlier this year, right?
Yes, we did.
Did anybody not agree to that? Do we have that kind of information?
I believe it was unanimous at that time.
So I think that that's important to remember, and I know it's very difficult because when this first came to our attention, we were thinking about, and we being, I include myself even though I'm not what you'd consider rural, but I do have a rural neighborhood to the north of Barrhaven, Orchard Estates and Cedar Hill, and of course those folks were against the path we were on, but we changed that path and we worked really hard, the Keith Aglai from the urban area and all the rural councillors, to come up with something that we thought was fair. And remembering that for many years, the ride had been free, which wasn't fair to everybody else in the city. So we worked hard on that, but then on first blush, when this came forward, it was $3.80, I think it was, over the year. Doesn't sound like a lot of money, but it absolutely was the principle of it for us. So we raised the flag again, and I know that Councillor Moffat and Councillor DeRuse as the chair and vice chair and other rural councillors really worked hard with Serge in your office to come up with something that meets that voted on threshold of 5%. So I just wanted that clarification, and thank you very much.
That's a very good summary. Thank you for that. Councillor Leeper, please.
Thank you, Chair. Just some questions with respect to the longer-term implications of what we're proposing to do today by adding more to the debt. On page 15 of the report in Table 8, it speaks to the debt servicing costs and the ceilings there. Ranging anywhere from 13.3 to 14.1%. In 2026, the debt servicing is upwards of 14.8% of those rate revenues. If we add these $3.1 million into the debt now, what does that mean for the debt ceiling moving forward? What are the implications?
It increases it slightly, but you're still within your 15% parameter.
So that 2026, for example, is when I think we come closest to meeting the cap at 14.8. We're still anticipated to stay in there.
I think 2021.
Oh, at 14.9, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I think you get to 15% that year, but then it comes down after that.
Year?
Yes.
Okay. So the total debt servicing costs from 2018 to 2027, we were looking at $638.1 million. Do you have a new figure on that if we pursue this course today?
We don't have a new number on that. We can provide that, but it's still, whatever it is, it's still within the 15%. So that's sort of our benchmark for this particular service area.
It would be useful to know like how much more interest costs we're adding on to onto that next.
We'll provide that to you.
Okay, thank you. The 1.9 million of new debt servicing costs over that period. Thank you. What difference will this make by going from, and I don't remember what the figure was, 13% down to 5%? What difference will that make in the average rural user's bill in real dollars?
So the average increase for rural not connected would be $1.40 per year. For urban not connected, $1.95 per year. And for those that are connected that get a water bill, it would be about $5.50.
Okay. Sorry, that's the new rate at this with the additional $3 million in debt financing?
Correct.
And what would have the rate been previous to our doing this?
Previous, using the 13% or the 5%?
Yeah, using the 13%.
I have the figure for rural, it would have been $3.50.
So it's bringing it down from 350 to about, sorry, you said a buck 50?
$1.40.
$1.40, okay. And then what about the 2019, 2020, 2021 years? What are we anticipating those rates would be? The same as what is in the report?
We will be bringing back further information before we determine what the 2019 rate will be, because we've been asked to go back and look at a number of different non-financial strategies and also additional financial strategies. One of the things we're aware of, because most of what's happening in your stormwater world is the result of climate change, is that we know the federal and provincial governments are considering programs to assist us with dealing with that. And if they do, then that will in fact change what we were projecting for 2019 and onward. But you'll have something, we'll bring something before the first council, the first in the next term, before they set the 2019 budget for the rate service areas.
Because if the intention is to keep that increase to roughly that 5% or so, I would be really loath to see us adding 3 million, whatever the number is today, 3.1 million every year when those interest costs are adding $1.9 million in our debt servicing. That's a burden that you're putting on, future taxpayers, future ratepayers. So hopefully we are coming up with something other than just borrowing more every year in order to keep to that 5%, particularly when, and Councillor Harder has spoken about the principle that is important, but in real dollars, that $2 a year seems, it's not worth putting our future generations even more in debt to take care of that.
This council has mandated that we can only go up to 15%. So we are there. So there's the possibility of adding more debt on is not one that's likely to happen.
We don't have that wriggle room.
Exactly.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Shirelli, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Okay, on the main part of this, or do you want comments on the main part, or do you?
Yeah, well, we're on item number 6 right now, so you can speak to either the amendment or the main report, whichever you support.
Okay. So when do we establish the debt ceiling of 15%?
In the last long-range financial plan that you did in 2012.
Okay, and can you remind Council what we used to do?
We had, before we had a 7.5% ceiling for the entire city. Right. But recognizing that water and sewer, which is basically a utility, is so capital intensive, keeping it at 7.5% didn't align with what we saw actually real utility companies having as their debt to equity ratio. And I think in the report we talk about that most utility companies run around 26% in debt. So even at 15, we're considerably less than most utility companies. If this service was not so capital asset intensive, we would stick with the 7.5. But given that it's all about infrastructure, we changed it and council agreed.
Okay, and as we retire debentures, we automatically reborrow, right?
Yes, we use, when debentures retire, we use that capacity to issue more debt, not more debt, to replace that debt.
Okay. And the impact of changing prevailing interest rates, that really only has an impact on either reborrowed or new debentures, is that correct?
Changing interest rates have an impact because for example, if you had a $100 million debenture that retired, but the rate changed so that the rate went up, we actually only would issue enough debt that corresponds to how much debt servicing is built into the budget. So that could take it down to, say, 90 million if the rates went up. So we don't work with the actual debt that's retiring, we work with the debt servicing that's available, and we issue the debt to fill that debt servicing capacity. But I can tell you that when we build these long-range financial plans for you, we take a fairly conservative approach with respect to what the interest rate is going to be. We do not go with today's low rates. We know that they're going up, so we average it out, and we will take a more conservative 4.5% or 5% for a debt rate when we're actually issuing at probably 3.5% today.
Okay, so this all makes sense as long as it's within that range, but at what interest rate level do we have to say this will either break our ceiling or we have to re-evaluate the approach?
Once you get past what we've built in as our assumptions, which would be the 4.5% to 5% that we've built in there. So once we're past that, yes, you will not be able to, you'll either have to change the limit or we'll have to constrain the amount of debt and use cash. But we would bring that back to you well in advance of that to warn you that we're reaching that.
Or we could also do fewer projects, right?
Yes, that's always an alternative, is to do less work, but I believe this council is committed to good state of repair of assets, so that would, I'm certain, would be a very difficult decision.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Kakish, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the motion in the first, therefore, can staff explain to me what new information we would be getting back in this report that we haven't already had presented to us at committee or council in the past?
You're referring to the longer-term funding strategies? Is that the part of the...
Well, it makes it sound, yeah, it's the first therefore, but it also makes it sound that we're going to be getting new information that we didn't have in terms of the list of projects, or perhaps more details that we did. I'm not sure what exactly we'd be receiving in that report that we haven't already received and voted on.
I can only speak, I can speak to the financial.
Sorry, I think, as I understand it in the discussions, we wanted to provide a list of those projects that would be above and below the line as new information. For instance, I know a number of councillors wanted that information, and that would be one aspect that we would be able to provide much more detail as to what's getting done in each ward, ditches, culverts, so on. Is that correct, Treasurer?
I believe so. I'll ask Mr. Gontier to respond to that, as that was raised at the Environment Committee.
Mr. Mayor, we did indicate that we would be able to provide directly in our discussion with the councillors in terms of what we're anticipating in terms of works taking place. I think that when we look at the motion in terms of what additional information could be forthcoming, when we look at the comprehensive asset management report, we do speak to non-financial strategies. A lot of it is looking at our level of service, because the funding investments that we provide around our assets, it's to support services to the public. So what we are going to be looking at is a lot more closely in terms of the level of service that we're providing and the level of funding that's required to support those levels. And that's information that we'll be bringing forward back to council early next term. And that's going to help to inform basically future rate projections.
Okay, there was a bit of discussion here in the back, so I didn't get all of it, but we already have a working list of infrastructure projects, and you send us some of those regularly. So I'm still, if you can repeat the answer again, or clarify what the new information would be that we'd be receiving that's being asked for in the motion.
Mr. Mayor, there were, I think we were pointing to two different items. Mr. Mayor was pointing to the fact that some of the councillors had asked for more details around the works that would be taking place in their wards, in terms of what's above the line and below the line. That's something that we committed to providing where councillors so wish. Specific to the motion, when we're talking about additional work to come back in before the next or early next term of council, is focused mainly around non-financial type of strategies. Key to that is level of service. Looking at our level of service, including on the stormwater side and our water and wastewater, to be able to re-inform basically our longer range projections. And that's basically identifying which projects are required to support that level of service.
But in terms of the capital list, we're not going to expect any big changes. You have a capital list of infrastructure that you need to upgrade and invest in. So that's
correct. And the capital list is typically provided through the budget process, and that will be provided again as part of the 2018 budget. As part of that process, we always also provide councillors with an outlook in terms of what we're anticipating in future years. We will continue to provide that level of detail. The assessment that we're really looking at is basically looking at in the longer term in terms of what are the overall investment levels that are required to support our assets. The budget provides the specifics in terms of the actual projects themselves.
Okay, so that 13% would be going to capital projects that no matter what you came back with this new information, that won't be impacted by that because those are projects that you need to pay through that increase that you're asking for. Is that fair?
Correct. I think when we're looking at the reduction for the 13, it's being offset by the fact that there is more debt. So the projects that we were anticipating for 2018 will still be proceeding.
Okay. And so we're not delaying any projects by doing this because you're finding that source of funding for this in the next year. But in terms of the interest cost that was on the debt financing, is that the only additional cost, that 1 point some million? We're not delaying any construction projects, which means also higher costs in the future for taxpayers.
There's also an additional $500,000. I believe it's also in the motion that we're deducting from the capital investments.
Okay, so 500 plus the interest that you referred as a result of delaying?
We're reducing capital investments by 500,000, and the 1.9 is an increase to debt service.
Okay, so that is a delay of construction projects.
Mr. Mayor, in terms of the quantum, that quantum would actually be reduced from our unallocated culvert renewal account. Every year we know that there's culverts that will fail, so we always provide basically funding set aside to be able to address those more emergency nature of the repairs. That's a fund that we set aside. The $500 would be drawn from that account.
But I think, Deputy Treasurer, we should remind members we're going from 64 million to 83 million. So, you know, that's a significant increase, and I know every member of council was concerned that we don't want to fall behind on basic infrastructure. So I think I give great credit to our rural colleagues, along with Councillors Harder and Eglai, who have a rural component to their wards, for coming up with, I believe, a very sensible compromise that allows us to go from 64 million to 83 million to deal with culverts, drains, stormwater issues. And at the same time bring the increase down from, I believe, 13% to 5%, which is in line with what we all voted on earlier this year. Is that correct, Ms. Jasmine?
Correct.
Okay. Councillor Kakish, like to continue?
No,
Anything
I'm
else?
good. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak or ask questions before we ask Councillor Chernyshenko to formally wrap up as the chair of the committee? Councillor Moffat.
Thanks. I don't want to take too much time. I just want to thank the people involved in the last week. Obviously these are, as I mentioned last week, this is something that I would have preferred to be involved with early on to avoid a lot of the talk and angst that was created last week. But I do appreciate the ability for the Mayor's office, Councillor Chernyshenko, of course, reached out to Councillor Eglai, Councillor Harder, Councillor Blais, Councillor El Chantiri, Councillor DeRuse, and many other councillors that we spoke with over the last week, as well as Mr. Gantier, Ms. Jasmine, on trying to come up with something that was amenable and consistent with what we had done in the past. One of the big concerns that we had heard at the meetings that we had on the stormwater rate was this fear that once we separated the rate, we would then jack up the increases on stormwater side. And I know $1.40, $3.50, it sounds like nothing, but it is, as Councillor Harder said, it is the principle that you have increases over years where it's 6% every year, 5% every year, and the second you remove that rate from that, the water and sewer continues to go up by 5%, but the stormwater goes up by 13%. The optics are incredibly poor. You're the second year into a 4-year phase-in, and we're recommending a major increase in the percentage, not the dollar. I mean, we can go through the budget. I mean, there's pages upon pages of fees and services at the City of Ottawa that we charge less than $50. We could increase every single one of those fees by $4 or $5 each. It would be irrelevant, right? Because it's only $4 or $5. The percentage would be 20 to 50% increases. You'd be upset by that. I mean, sure, the dollar amount's minor, but you can't get caught up with the dollar amount because as you add them all up, eventually it stops being minor. And I think the great thing about percentages is it's an equalizer in how you look at things. A 2% increase in the tax is what we do because 2% sounds manageable. But then Just because something's less doesn't mean that 13% is any different. So I do feel that this sets us forward for this year and hopefully next in something that's consistent. It's what residents are expecting while still investing in infrastructure. The next steps part of this is understanding what those infrastructure needs are. Being able to, residents aren't concerned about spending for something they know what they're getting. It's a matter of understanding where your money's going. You know, and we joked around the other day that if you increase taxes by 5%, you know, go nuts as long as you're putting all 5% into roads, specifically roads in my ward. But anyways, the key thing is knowing where your money's going, knowing what the needs are. We didn't have the time for that in this report, and that's what this motion does. It gives us the ability to look at our water assets, to look at our sewer assets, to look at our stormwater assets citywide. Whether you live on Bronson Avenue, whether you live in Gilletta, it doesn't matter. There's a need across the city, and we need to understand that so that we can discuss amongst ourselves and with residents what those needs are and where that money's being spent and why it matters. Without those details, it makes it incredibly difficult for us to make those decisions on behalf of our residents. So thank you, Councillor Chernushenko, for moving this motion. I'm happy to support it because it gets us down a path that I feel is more consistent with what our residents are expecting and what we discussed with them not more than a year ago when we approved the new water, sewer, and stormwater rate structure. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Moffat, for your work on this as well as Chair of ARAC, and Councillor El Shantiri.
Well, actually, Mr. Mayor, I was going to thank Councillor Chernushenko and Moffat for all of us working together to achieve that number. Mr. Mayor, I don't have to remind a lot of my colleagues, the work still needs to be done right across the city on our infrastructure. But we were pleased to see the increase in spending in that area, even if it means we're going to create a little bit of debt. But after what we saw this spring, and I think it opened our eyes on the work we need to be done to avoid, I don't believe the flood that took place has anything to do with our infrastructure, but nevertheless, we need to improve our infrastructure in those areas. And this will get us what we need to do. And I know our residents caution us about this if it's going to start increasing, but nevertheless, the list of demand and work has not slowed down yet. So on one hand, we need more to be done. On the other hand, we don't want to pay for. So it seems it's a challenge at all time. But just to bring the percentage from what it was to 5%, which is we all voted for early in the year to maintain that level of service, I think we need to move forward on this. But again, I just want to say thank you to both my colleague and your office, Mr. Mayor, and staff. And I'm still looking for where you don't have to just highlight it in this meeting, the increase in spending. I think that should be a communication out there with a list of projects where this money is going to be spent to show where value for money is. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Nussbaum.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question to staff. I understand the issue about how between the long-range financial plan in 2012 and now a pretty significant change was made in terms of how we are separating out these three areas. And I have a fair bit of sympathy for the fact that a 13% increase all of a sudden seems jarring. One thing I wondered is, was there any consideration given in looking at ways of dealing with that, of postponing the separation of the three services so that we still had a single rate increase for 2018, so that in some way we could do the same thing but absorb the $1.9 million that we're going to have to add, or that we're going to have to pay in addition in terms of debt servicing? So would there be a way of addressing the issue of the stormwater rate, keeping a consolidated single rate increase for 2018, and therefore not having to spend an additional $1.9 million over the next 10 years? I'm just wondering if that option is available to us.
Part of the problem with keeping them separate is that you actually have a group of people, primarily in the rural areas, who don't get a water bill. So we would still have to parse out what is the increase for them, because all they get is a storm rate.
Right.
So we will be introducing the new bill next year, and people will be able to see we need to move to the fixed and to the variable component. And I was pleased to see that McGill University recognized our efforts in that, and that we're leading the country in terms of what they thought was basically visible and fair water and sewer user fees. So unfortunately, I don't think there's a way for us to do it given the reality of who actually is paying.
Right. Okay, thanks for that answer.
Great, thank you. To wrap up, and if you could read the therefore be it resolved, Councillor Chernyshenko, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I will read the therefore parts of the motion, and then we'll offer some concluding remarks. So you have the motion in front of you. We should probably have read this on earlier, but councillors did receive it in advance of the meeting, and it's been up on our screens as well. Therefore, be it resolved that staff be directed to review the longer-term funding strategies for the rate-supported programs as described in this motion, to be reported back to committee and council following the report on the updated infrastructure strategies outlined in the Comprehensive Asset Management Program Update, Water and Sewer Rate Supported Programs Report, and that this report be presented as early as possible in the next term. And be it further resolved that Council approve that the draft 2018 rate-supported operating and capital budgets be developed such that an additional $3.1 million of the planned $83.2 million capital investment in stormwater services be funded from debt, that the increased spending plan for 2018 be set at $82.7 million, and that the planned increase in the stormwater revenue be set at 5% as the basis to calculate the 2018 stormwater rates as described in this motion, and be it further resolved that the Mayor, on behalf of City Council, continue to work with the federal and provincial governments on establishing a predictable long-term funding program for the renewal of general municipal infrastructure such as roads, culverts, and bridges. Okay.
Any other wrap-up comments?
Yes, thank you very much. On one hand, the debate that was described as the angst that occurred over the last week was predictable. On the other hand, I suppose I did not expect it to happen, and therefore we had to deal with it after the fact. There's an unfortunate reality, which is the fact of amalgamation in a period in which certain classes, particularly rural, but not just rural, of homeowners and ratepayers did not pay for their stormwater services for a number of years, but are now fairly being assessed to pay for them. We've got some, I don't know if the right analogy is teething pains or birthing pains with bringing this into practice in this coming year. There were expectations associated with that, and the numbers that were seen in front on the report that came to committee last week seemed to go against what some people's expectations were. I do want to make very clear it is my belief that this is not a rural, suburban, urban issue. We have a big city that's trying to work together as a big city, and we have done an admirable job, I believe, as councillors in the 2 terms I've served of trying to work as one city team. And it's really incumbent on all of us, though it is a challenge, to try to show to our constituents that everybody is being treated as fairly as we can do. We're trying to assess people the cost of what it costs to deliver services to them. We are only charging them for services we believe are essential and that they have told us are essential, and that we are trying to allocate so that there isn't one class of citizens or one area of the city that's being treated more fairly or less fairly than others. So although this rain tax stormwater issue somehow degraded at certain times as being an imposition on some residents, particularly rural, I really hope that we're getting over that and that we will. Stormwater services are essential to all of us, although they are often as invisible to urban as to rural residents. They're typically under the ground. We don't look at them. We don't really care about them until they fail. And when they fail, we really, really care about them. And we wish somebody had done something about it. And we wish they had spent the money that they should have spent on maintenance before they failed. So that's when it becomes a human cost as well as a financial cost. No one wants the human cost. We've had sinkholes. We've had vehicles fall into them, but we've not yet had a casualty. And I don't want to be sitting in this chair. I don't want to be someone who had sat in this chair when that happens because we didn't do the maintenance that we should have done. We asked our staff to provide us a list of maintenance that needs to be done so we prevent as much as we can. We prevent those sorts of things from happening. They brought that forward to us professionally, and we are now voting on a motion which has rejigged a few things, responded to concerns that we've heard. But I couldn't vote for this if I felt that we were shortchanging or underfunding critical infrastructure. It doesn't do that. In fact, we're actually spending $19 million more than in 2017 on stormwater infrastructure. That is an investment, and it's an essential investment. So I do bring this forward despite it being somewhat of a compromise from what was originally there. We have plenty of time to talk about future years, but in this year it is not a compromise in terms of safety. So I proudly bring this motion forward as something that we've worked together on, which will ensure that our infrastructure is adequately funded, and I hope will put to rest the idea that any resident of this city is being unfairly treated, is being charged for a service that they are not getting.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor. So the motion is before us. Councillor Chernyshenko, seconded by Councillor Moffat. Carried. Dissent by Councillor DeRose, Kakish, and Leeper. All right. Yeas and nays have been called.
Councillor Leeper?
Nay.
Councillor Taylor?
Yes.
Councillor Eglai?
Yes.
Councillor Chernyshenko?
Yes.
Councillor Nussbaum?
Yes.
Councillor Deans?
Yes.
Councillor Blais?
Yes.
Councillor El-Shantiri?
Yes.
Councillor Kakish?
No.
Conseil Cloutier?
Oui.
Councillor Wilkinson?
Yes.
Conseil Monette?
Oui.
Councillor Moffat?
Yes.
Councillor Shirelli?
Yes.
Councillor DeRose?
No.
Councillor Brockington?
Yes.
Councillor Hubley?
Yes.
Councillor McKenney?
Yes.
Conseil Fleury?
Oui.
Councillor Harder?
Yes.
Councillor Tierney?
Yes.
Councillor Kadri?
Yes.
Councillor Middick? Mayor Watson?
Yes.
20 yeas, 3 nays.
Thank you. And Councillor Chernyshenko, I have it seconded by Councillor Kakish. I'm not sure if Councillor Kakish is... Well, Councillor Kakish is your name on the seconding motion to receive and adopt the strategy as amended. Well, I don't know. Do you want me to take your name off, Councillor Kakish?
I don't mind if it's just a procedural thing. If he asked me as a seconder, so I was asked by the clerk's office at the beginning of the meeting, but if someone else wants
Yeah,
to do it,
it's to adopt the report you just voted against. So,
Yeah.
Councillor Harder, you'll... Okay. So be it resolved that City Council receive and adopt the strategy described in this report as amended by Environment and Climate Protection Committee. Carried. Okay, so our next item that was held was item number 7 is the Comprehensive Asset Management Program Update Water and Sewer Rate Supported Programs, which deals with this. But the only matter we have before us is that instead of it saying the Environment Committee, because you didn't vote on this, it's the City Council that's voting on it. So it's basically the same, except the Council as a whole is voting because there was no vote taken at Environment Committee. So it's moved by Councillor Chernyshenko, seconded by Councillor Kakish. Carried? All right. The next item that was held was the City of Ottawa Zoning Bylaw 2008-250 Omnibus Amendments Q3 2017. Councillor Fleury has a motion, seconded by Councillor Harder, with respect to payday loans.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire, and I want to begin by thanking the Chair for allowing me to bring this to Council. I know that it is a matter that could have been dealt at committee, but I was unfortunately on pat leave at an important file for me. I've carried through the amendments to Bill 57 provincially, and now they've given the authority, the province has, for municipalities to start regulating the payday loans, and we're taking an opportunity. There's two elements, one which is a zoning review, one which is a licensing. So we'd like to begin with the zoning components of it. So I think you have the motion in front of you. And the relevant parts are actually just the therefore be resolved that council directs staff in Planning, Infrastructure and Economic Development Department to add to their 2018 work plan the preparation of a report recommending regulations for payday loan establishments for consideration by Planning Committee and Council and City Council. And maybe, Mr. Mayor, before, I know there's a few speakers on it, but we've worked closely with Stephen Willis on the matter, so I wonder if, I mean, I'm privy to those conversations, but Mr. Willis, maybe you can speak to the importance of doing such an approach regarding the zoning, factoring the matter that currently our zoning encompasses all of the financial institutions, so we don't differentiate between a bank and a payday lender.
So, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify, in the omnibus amendments bill that's before Council, notwithstanding the motion, we took the opportunity, amongst correcting a number of other very minor issues in the zoning bylaw, as we do on an annual basis, took the opportunity, because of Bill 57, to distinguish in the zoning bylaw between a payday loan establishment and a financial institution. So from zoning purposes, from this day forward, they're not the same thing. And that's what Bill 57 provincially allows us to do. At this stage, it does nothing else than that. Where banks are permitted, where financial institutions and banks are permitted today, payday loans today will also be permitted as a result of this change, because we have not yet done the work to develop performance standards for them from a land use perspective. So what the motion does is it takes us to the next stage from the land use perspective, and we'll spend the next year developing performance standards for them as it relates to the land use question. And we need time to develop, because this is new law, new legislation, we need to develop a coherent case. We need to compare best practices with what other municipalities in Ontario are doing and make a case that we can defend for the Ontario Municipal Board if required. So we do need time to do this, but we took the opportunity with the omnibus amendment to define them separately. So from this point forward, they are seen as separate.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Ray.
That's it. Councillor Cloutier, s'il vous plaît.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire, et merci, Conseiller Fleury.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Fleury.
For your for this. Je suis en support de cette.
I support this initiative. Everywhere in the city, I think it's obvious that a payday loan business is not a bank and has a totally different clientele and totally different purpose. We have very vulnerable people everywhere in the city, south of Bank, Walkley, Heron. So I truly appreciate the Councillor Fleury's initiative. I look forward to the Planning Department report to see how we can differentiate the payday loans and banks. So I appreciate it, and I will support this amendment.
Thank you. Councillor Shirelli, please.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Speaking as somebody with two strips that have the same type of concern, I can tell you the public definitely wants us to deal with it thoughtfully. But I know at the IT subcommittee, we've been looking at other ways that payday loans are done. And I just want to make sure that when you do your examination, that you'll look at the possibility of some of the front line moving to online and through some of the new technologies, which I can put you in touch with some of the companies dealing with it. But I just want to make sure that it's we're looking toward the next century and not the last century.
So, Mr. Mayor, that's absolutely a valid point. It will, as we look at this more broadly, that will be an important factor. But just to caution council, the focus in the next year's worth of work is to focus on the land use impacts of the establishment. So this is what the law allows us to look at this point in time, because not the rest. The full bill hasn't been fully proclaimed in all aspects. So we will focus on this aspect, and we think it's a great place to start. But the point is well taken, council.
Councillor Brockington, please.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good morning. Mr. Willis, you have room in your work plan in 2018. You're quite busy with your fingers and multiple pies. This can be squeezed in?
Mr. Mayor, we think this is a fairly straightforward exercise of analyzing the legal implications, looking at how we deal with other uses in a similar nature that have impacts of this point, and comparing notes with other municipalities. And we're actually hoping that we're not doing this on our own. We believe other municipalities will come forward and will share effort in order to spread the workload.
So you said this would take about a year, what you need to do internally. What are we going to see at the end of the year at planning? What will actually come to the planning committee?
So, Mr. Mayor, if we, through the analysis, determine that there's a basis to put performance standards such as separation distances in the zoning bylaw, that's the sort of thing we would do. As I said, it is isolated to land use impacts in this space, so separation distances are the most likely form of regulation we'd be able to do in the zoning bylaw, but that we'll be looking at that in more detail.
Will you be undertaking any type of public consultation during your year to get various input? Obviously, there are folks who are concerned about the financial aspects on people who use this, but there are also people who need this service. We've talked about how close they should be. Are you going to collect that feedback before you come back to committee?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we will.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Brockington. Anyone else on this item? So on Councillor Fleury, seconded by Councillor Harder's amendment, carried. On the main report, item number 11, zoning bylaw 2008-250 omnibus amendments Q3 2017 as amended, carried. The next item that was held from the bulk consent agenda is item number C, Technical Anomalies Amendment, Permanent Signs on Private Properties Bylaw 2016-326, Modification pour Anomalie Technique Règlement 2016.326 sur les enseignes permanentes sur les propriétés privées. Councillor Fleury has a motion, seconded by Councillor McKenney. If you'd like to introduce it, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Therefore, be it resolved that item C from bulk consent agenda, Technical Anomalies Amendment, Permanent Signs on Private Property Bylaw 2016-326-54 be deferred for consideration at the next council meeting. Mr. Mayor, I did miss the Planning Committee meeting. Again, I apologize for that. I was on paternity leave, but there are matters that we passed about a year or so ago relating to digital signage that do have implications on this report. I am in contact and discussions with Mr. Bidden and Mr. Chapman to bring forward a technical motion so that our bylaw staff have the right tools to follow up on what council had approved. So it's a technical motion, but I want to make sure that it's properly written, so it wasn't ready for today's council meeting.
So, Mr. Willis, does this slow down anything in terms of your work plan with respect to other sign issues?
Mr. Mayor, there's one application in process that's affected by this, but as I was advised by staff, by the time we actually brought the bylaw forward, it may not actually have a real impact because we still have to bring the bylaw itself to council. So if this is truly a matter we can resolve in the next couple of weeks, it may have no impact.
Okay. Okay, so on the motion on the bulk consent, item number C, item recommendations on Councillor Fleury's amendment first.
It's a deferral.
Yeah, but we have to vote on it, don't we? Yeah, so on deferral? Carried? All right. Okay, so motions to adopt reports. Motion portant adoption de rapport. Councillor Kakish, seconded by Councillor Taylor, please.
That the report from the City Clerk and Solicitor's Office entitled Status Update, Council Inquiries and Motions for the period ending September 22nd, 2017, Community and Protective Services Report 26, Environment and Climate Protection Committee Report 15, Planning Committee Reports 50A and 51, and the report from the City Clerk and Solicitor's Office entitled Summary of Oral and Written Public Submissions for Items Subject to Bill 73 Explanation Requirements at the City Council meeting of September 13, 2017 be received and adopted as amended.
On the motion, carried. Merci. Motions requiring suspension of the rules of procedure. We have none to date. Does anyone have a motion? Notices of motion for consideration at subsequent meeting. Avis de motion pour réserve réunion subséquente. Motion to introduce bylaws. Motion portant présentation de règlement. Councillor Kakish, seconded by Councillor Taylor, please.
That the bylaws listed on the agenda under motion to introduce bylaws, 3 readings be read and passed.
Carried. Confirmation bylaw réglementation de ratification. Councillor Kakish, seconded by Councillor Taylor, please.
That the following bylaw be read and passed to confirm the proceedings of the council meeting of September 27, 2017.
Carried. We have one written inquiry. Councillor Fleury, please.
Merci, Mr. Mayor. Can staff please provide information regarding the agreement with the Concord Hotel located at 333 Montreal Road? Given that this hotel has a contract with the city to provide emergency family shelter, I'd like to see statistics on how many people per year have been housed at the hotel, their average length of stay, and the financial implication for the city per year for the last 5 years.
Thank you. Councillor Eglai, I believe you have a comment on one of our most successful programs that is about to launch, and then followed by some new news from Councillor Hubley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I just wanted to remind everyone that the Fall Cleaning the Capitol campaign is underway. And this year marks a milestone for the Cleaning the Capitol. It's our 25th year that we're carrying out this campaign. And so far this fall, we have almost 10,000 participants taking part in cleaning up our city, whether it be a schoolyard, a boulevard, a park. People can still register until the 15th of October. Their project's online, and that's a segue to my colleague, Councillor Hubley, who's going to speak about a new and interesting way to do just that.
Councillor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councillor Eglai. There's going to be an email that will come out to all of Council right after this, but as sponsors of the city's innovation pilot program, Councillor Tierney, Councillor Blais, and myself are excited to share that the City of Ottawa and the GLAD Cleaning the Capitol program have partnered with Ottawa's local mobile startup, MC2, to gamify our fall cleanups. The partnership is part of the city's Innovation Pilot Program, which explores and promotes innovative technologies each year. Our chatbot pilot named Vaya is programmed to crowdsource community engagement by interacting with residents on Facebook Messenger. This year, Vaya will support the city's GLAD Cleaning the Capitol program by inviting residents to come together as a community to help make our city clean and green. Vaya recommends nearby parks for cleanups, then asks participants to submit a photo or video of themselves taking action, such as recycling or picking up litter. This will be especially fun for the youth of our community, Mr. Mayor, and Vaya rewards residents for taking action with collectible badges that they then can share online to show their participation. Cleanup actions are showcased on a map of the city, highlighting the collective impact of our residents' efforts, and invites others to contribute. With a database of over 1,200 parks, Vaya makes cleaning Ottawa easy, accessible, and fun. Residents are invited to take part in this pilot by chatting with Vaya on Facebook Messenger during the GLAD Cleaning the Capitol campaign until October 15th. And as I said, this email will be sent out to everybody. It's going to have the links to the chat box and everything so that we can promote it. Thank you very much.
Great. It's a great initiative. Members of council will recognize a number of our colleagues have these nice turquoise shirts on, and there's an announcement that was made today. I thought Councillor Harder, as the chief organizer of this particular initiative, bringing her colleagues from the West End on board, could just give us a little update on the QCH Campaign of Hope.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. And a group of us, West Enders and South Enders, that benefit greatly from the Queensway Carleton Hospital serving our communities and, in fact, our city. I've come together for the second time. Originally, we came together for what was the acute care for the elderly project that they were raising money to build a unique elderly center at the Queensway Carleton. This year, their goal is, over the next year, is to raise money for the Queensway Carleton Hope Rising, which is for the mental health unit. Queensway Carleton is the place where if you have someone with mental health, you are going to be going there to, they cannot be admitted to Royal Ottawa. They have to go through the Queensway Carleton. They've increased their staff there by 50% already. And because we have a relationship and understand the significance that that community hospital provides to Councillor Eglai, Councillor Shirelli, Deputy Mayor Taylor, Councillor Kadri, Councillor Elchantiria, Councillor Wilkinson, myself, Councillor Hubley, Councillor Kakish, and Councillor Moffat. We're coming together again, and we're going to be ambassadors again, but raising hope for our Queensway Carleton Hospital, and we're going to have many initiatives over the year. We find that it resonates so well to have our leadership in our communities. People talk to us about it and say how pleased they are that we're taking on that role. So thank you for giving us the time. We launched today, and we'll be working on this for the next year. Our goal this time is to raise amongst ourselves $500,000. Thank you very much.
Great, and good luck with that. Councillor Kakish, adjournment motion, seconded by Councillor Taylor, please.
That the proceedings of the City Council meeting of September 27, 2017 be adjourned.
Carried. Adopté. Thank you. Meeting adjourned.